Hello and welcome, everyone, and welcome back. I know it's been a few weeks, but hey, let's just get back into it. Okay, so today what I want to talk about is pain during pregnancy. This has been a special request, so I always like those. So if you have any, feel free to put them in the comments and I will make a video for you. So, pregnancy is something that a lot of us have, I guess, a bit of a love-hate relationship with. I personally had a bit of a weird relationship with getting pregnant, having children. The biggest thing for me was I felt forced into it. When I was diagnosed, it was still the belief that as long as you get pregnant, then that will just somehow clear up the endometriosis and you'll be all good. Now, I got told this in my early 20s. I had no intention of having kids at that point. So it was a very far-fetched idea to even consider that I should just get pregnant to solve my endometriosis. I do, however, know of women who did follow this advice and really did have relief because they literally had another child every few years. And so the endometriosis was kind of dampened during, because when you're pregnant, the hormones change. When you're breastfeeding, the hormones change. And so they didn't really have as many severe symptoms as they had prior. So, over the years, I've gained a better understanding of endometriosis, pregnancy, why this might be something that's encouraged. And the biggest thing is that there is a shift when you get pregnant on so many levels. Your immune system changes, the way your body responds to glucose changes, your hormones obviously change, but there's so many things that are going on. And so it has shown relief for some women. However, it doesn't work for all women, and it is certainly not what they claim that it's, this amazing cure for getting rid of endo. It's not. I've had women who actually developed endometriosis after having children. So I certainly want to dispel any idea that getting pregnant is going to be this miracle solution to your endometriosis. Now, I do want to talk today more about pain with endometriosis and pregnancy. This is the request I've specifically had. If you have questions around getting pregnant or anything related to endometriosis, feel free to pop those in the comments. This is live today, so I am here with you. So feel free to respond. Feel free to share your comments, and I should be able to see those through this tool. So yeah, in the chat box, you can just share your comments or thoughts. Okay, so I'm just going to jump over to my screen now so that I can share with you a little bit more about pregnancy, endo, pain with pregnancy, and all of that stuff. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is understand what endo is and what's going on with endo. The first thing, I guess, we know a couple of things about endometriosis. We know that endometriosis is essentially a condition where there is heightened inflammation. And the term inflammation can seem confusing to people if you've never heard this term, but essentially it's kind of like a gauge that your body is experiencing. And you'll know that you have heightened inflammation because typically there's other associated symptoms with it. You might have more joint pain, you might have more headaches, you might have more swelling in the body. But pain is one of the most obvious indicators of heightened inflammation in the body. And that can reflect in all sorts of ways. So, like I say, joint pain, but endo obviously is pain. So, period pain, all of those kinds of things. I have got a free introductory course which you can watch, which talks all about inflammation and explains it in much more detail. So if you're wanting to check that out, I'll pop the link underneath this video when I'm done. Now, inflammation is the biggest contributor to pain, and a lot of the pain that you would experience with pregnancy would be related to this heightened inflammatory response that's going on in the body. The other factor is adhesions. So, adhesions are essentially kind of like, the best way to describe them is kind of like spider webs, you know. So, if you imagine that your body at some point wanted to secure your uterus, maybe you had a fall at some point, or there was some kind of physical injury, your body will do whatever it needs to do to protect that uterus. And so the best way that I've always described it is like it send out these cobwebs to hold the uterus in place. And so those are adhesions, and they basically are trying to support that uterus. The problem, of course, is that adhesions are tight. You know, they are like strong strings that are holding that uterus in place. And these strings are going to restrict the movement of not just your uterus, but any other organs, you know, like the bowel or the bladder or whatever might be in the area that it's now clinging to. Now, when you obviously get pregnant, this whole area is now growing and expanding. And so you can imagine that all of these adhesions, you know, these kind of strings are getting pulled and stretched. And that's what would be a huge contributor to pain if you haven't done some work to alleviate those adhesions. Now, when there is heightened inflammation in the body, so when you already have heightened inflammation going on, you will naturally develop more adhesions. Your body does this as a way to heal. It's doing the best that it can. So a lot of the time, people are going, oh, you know, I have adhesions and I don't know what's going on here. Why can't I just, you know, do I have to have surgery to remove these adhesions, etc.? We need to work on this here before you can see results with this, okay? So the adhesions themselves are kind of like your body's building scars. It's trying to protect that space. And if you work on reducing inflammation in the body, you will naturally reduce the adhesions in the body. Okay, so they're not separated from each other. Now, there are things you can do to alleviate adhesions naturally, and obviously, there's lots of things you can do to alleviate inflammation naturally. So, hopefully, that all makes sense to you guys. Okay. Now, when it comes to pregnancy, there is some key things that you want to do to reduce inflammation. So, the first one is to look at your diet, because there are things that contribute to inflammatory responses in the body, and particular are things that heighten the glycemic index or load in the body. Okay, so anything that is high sugar will trigger an insulin release. Okay, if you have too much of this going on all day long, you are driving up inflammation. So a diet that is predominantly based on lots and lots of carbs and sugar, you know, not just processed sugar, but any kind of sugar. So high carb, high sugar diets that spike up that glycemic reaction in the body, so if there's this heightened insulin release, that is going to drive inflammation. And that will drive pain in the body. And when there is this heightened inflammation, there will be more adhesions. Okay, so I hope that is easy enough to understand, but essentially high sugar is not your friend. Okay, so really what you want to do is you want to cut out your processed sugar to begin with. And I know this is hard, so I'm not going to dismiss this as an easy thing. It is hard because we are, as humans, we naturally crave that instant release of energy. In the good old days when foods weren't so processed and when fruit wasn't, altered to the point where it's just sweeter and sweeter and sweeter, there was a lot more fiber in the fruit. There was a lot more fiber to slow that heightened response. Okay. So this is going to take you a little bit of adjusting. But what I recommend you do is try 1 month of just eliminating the processed sugar. So processed sugar is pretty much what you're going to find on most packaged foods. So if the first ingredients you read are sugar or anything similar, like, you'll find there's different types of sugars, but try for 1 month just to avoid any kind of processed sugars. And I can almost guarantee you that you will have a reduction in pain and a reduction in that inflammatory response, because this is the biggest contributor to pain and inflammation in the body. Okay, so we really want to make sure that we're focusing on this one first. Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. If you cut out the processed sugars and then drop to cutting out the carbs, so those same foods that can also have a very high spike, that's when you will feel dramatic changes. Okay, and this is also why we focus on eliminating gluten, because there's so much gluten now, and the gluten, not only is it going to have this spike happening with the carbs, but it's also such a highly processed. Wheat is basically highly processed. I have done another video on that, so go check that out if you want to know more about gluten. Okay, so coming back to pregnancy and pain with pregnancy. So we've got the first reason is heightened inflammation, and this can be basically monitored better with diet. And secondly, adhesions. Okay, so those were our two key things we want to focus on. There is another factor which contributes to inflammation, and that is infection. A history of infection, any kind of, even a viral infection that would have an effect on inflammation, vaginal infections, bladder infections, if there's any kind of history of infection. The body is responding to an invader. It's going to drive up inflammation and it's going to trigger the immune system. Once the immune system has been triggered, it's almost like it's on hyperdrive and then it is ready for any kind of attack. And this can put the body into this inflammatory state, and then it's just perpetual from there. Okay, so if you have a history of infection, which, to be honest, I see quite a lot of with endometriosis, then it's important to look at that, to look at what's going on with your immune system. How strong is the immune system? What can you do to support your immune system to lower this, which is then contributing to pain, contributing to adhesions, and contributing to everything that's going on with endometriosis. Okay. So my advice for pregnancy and endo. My biggest advice, and I literally say this to all my clients, get well first. Okay. I know this is not something we want to hear. I know there's time pressure. I know there's this urgency. Maybe you've just had surgery and they've said to you, you need to get pregnant as fast as possible. However, you need to think about what you're putting your body through. Pregnancy is not an easy thing. You're literally creating life in your body. That is exhausting work. It will tax your body on every possible level. It's going to draw out every nutrient. It's hard work for the body. And so you want to get your body well. The other biggest thing is you're building a baby in there. And if you don't have the resources, your baby may not be healthy. So getting yourself healthy first before you conceive is really the most important thing I can share with you. And this doesn't have to be this long, hard thing. It can literally be 6 months where you fully commit to yourself, getting yourself well. And like I love to say, building a lovely home for baby. Baby wants to move into a nice home with lots of nourishment and no stress and this beautiful space. And you can create that in 6 months, commit to it, give it your all because it's worth it so that you have a healthy child. I've seen far too many cases of women who rush into pregnancy or get IVF treatment. The body is not ready. The body doesn't want to conceive, and yet they force the issue, and then they land up with children that need a lot more care. And that's really draining on the family, financially, and you. So, really, really think about this. This is not a light decision. Okay. Having a child is a huge responsibility, and you want to make sure that your body is ready for this and you know what you're getting into because this is a big commitment. So, you want to make sure that you do the best you can. So, I highly encourage you to really take that 6 months and get your body well. Okay. Now, the way to do this is really to focus on your diet. So that's your number one. One of the things that can happen if you are still, struggling with the glucose and there's insulin sensitivity and all of that stuff I just talked about with regards to that is you can develop something called gestational diabetes. This only happens during pregnancy, and it basically is caused because there's not enough insulin in the body. And so basically, women develop diabetes during pregnancy. Now, you can imagine this is not great for baby. This is an environment where you're creating a lot of inflammation, and that's not healthy environment for baby to grow up in. Okay, so we want to make sure that we get this insulin regulation. We want to get things under control when it comes to your blood sugars. So one of the things I often see is women having cereal for breakfast, then they feel tired, then they have some cookie, then it's lunch and they have a sandwich, then they have another cookie or a chocolate, and then they might have pasta for dinner. This is every single time you are spiking and the body is having to release insulin to get those glucose levels down. This is very taxing on the body, and you'll actually feel really tired at these points here in the day. Okay. Now, I just want to tell you, I've done this because sugar gives us that quick boost of energy. And so we naturally crave it because it's easy and, it is easier. You can go to any shop, any cafe, anywhere, like a petrol station, anywhere, and you can grab a, chocolate bar, or you can grab something much, much easier than other fuel sources. And so you grab that and then you have a chocolate bar and then you feel a burst of energy and you're like, okay, great, this is going to get me through. And then a couple of hours later, you crash again and then you want to have something else. The problem with this is that you're spiking that insulin every single time. And every single time you do this, you're actually driving up inflammation. And every single time you do that, guess what you're driving? You're driving pain. but more importantly, you're driving that endo. That endo is basically, it's like you're fueling the growth of endometriosis through that process. So you're literally pouring petrol on an already burning flame that's happening in your body. Okay. So we don't want to be doing this. Okay. And if this is really hard for you right now, you're like, Mel, I don't know what to eat. Like, how am I supposed to get through the day? I live on cereal, I live on sandwiches, etc. Start with one meal, and it's usually breakfast. Honestly, I can tell you from my own experience, I have done this. So I'm not guilty of this. I know how easy it is to fall into this. My husband and I own a catering company. We do some really strong, heavy days. And when you hit that slump, the first thing you want to do is reach for chocolate. The first thing you want to do is reach for instant sugar because it's such a drop. But what I found is that if I replace that with a slow release or with something protein, I actually can last a lot longer and you don't get those spikes as you see here. Okay, so start with one meal, start with breakfast. Okay, and start looking at what are you eating and what's got a high sugar content in your diet and really dropping that. So just, start slow. Don't go cold turkey on this because it's natural for us to crave sugar. And you're just going to feel crappy about yourself if you try and do it overnight. Okay. So start with breakfast. And the meals that I typically go with for breakfast is I'll actually do almost like a medley of vegetables. If you can handle eggs, some women can't do eggs. But eggs have been my savior because they really are very high in protein and they really do fill you up nicely. But I'll do a medley of veg. Sometimes I'll do like the one that I had yesterday was literally salmon with some buckwheat. And then there's a whole lot of veggies in there. And there's like spinach and capsicum. And it's literally just a medley of things. It's a savory based breakfast. And I've always had a craving for sweet breakfasts, and I know this, and I'm aware of this. So for me, I really have to train myself to go, okay, I'm not going to have that, and over the last year, I've learned a lot more in terms of this desire for sugar. And a lot of it comes back to emotional desire as well. Like it's this idea of, kind of like, a reward system that I grew up with. If you did a good job of something, here's a chocolate. If you, cracked an A at school, here's a chocolate, and so my brain associates when I've done a good job of something or if I've worked really hard, that is kind of almost like the linear in my brain that I'm now going to have some chocolate, So don't feel badly. I really want to stress that. Don't feel badly about anything that you've done because we can always fix it and we can always move forward and we can always shift what we're doing. Okay. So is there any questions, anything you guys want to ask me? I am here live with you today. So I'm really going to go back to doing lives because it's a lot easier. So if there is any questions, pregnancy is something that we have been able to achieve for so many women. It is amazing when it happens. But my biggest thing is to really focus on getting well first. I've had women who literally have had 4 IVF treatments and weren't able to get pregnant. And then they follow a protocol. They go through a proper process of actually healing the body and they get pregnant naturally. And this is so much better, not just for you, but for the baby. I mean, I'm all for like medical advances, but the whole idea of IVF I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me because I'm like, why are we forcing the body to do something? It's not ready. It doesn't have what it needs to make a baby. So let's give it what it needs. And it is an emotional topic. And I know that for so many women, they've tried so many times. But I guess my thing is, let's work on that first. Let's try that first. Let's give it our all in terms of really supporting the body, creating that environment for baby to move into. And yes, if it fails, then fine, let's go for IVF. But let's not force the body into something when it's not well. And there's layers to getting well. Diet's one component, but there's many other layers. We look at essentially my reach technique. So it's replenish, get the body nourished, get the body full of good nutrients. It's not about just eliminating a bunch of foods, because honestly, I've seen that so much. Cut out this and cut out that, and I'm not eating this and I'm not eating that, so surely my body should be well. Well, it doesn't. You need to nourish the body. What are you giving your body instead? How are you supporting your body? Eating a bunch of gluten-free bread is not supporting your body. You're not giving your body any nourishment. Okay. What are you eating that nourishes the body, really supports the body, gives it absolutely everything that it can in an absorbable format? So ditch all those supplements, focus on your diet. Where are you getting your nutrients from that's absorbable to the body? Next, how are you moving? Are you moving enough? In what format are you moving? Are you moving in a way that is supportive of your body, or is it causing more strain and stress on the body? A lot of the time, women either are one or the extreme. They're not moving at all, and they sit all day, and there's no circulation, there's no movement to the abdominal area because of that. Or they're the other extreme, and they're doing HIIT training, and they're doing, really pushing the body, and that drives anxiety, and that drives cortisol. And that is not an environment baby wants to move into either. We are women. We are not men. We need to accept that we are different. And our approach to exercise needs to fulfill what women need. Okay. And generally, what I found is women need a more calm type of exercise. Yes, muscle building, but it's focusing on soothing that overactive thinking. It's focusing on lowering that sympathetic nervous system response. Want to know more about that? There's more videos on that. Okay. You want to get into a calm state of mind when you exercise. And for some people, this is running or, something that's more intensive. But if it's stressing you out, it's not the right form of exercise. If you're forcing, it's not the right form of exercise. Find something you enjoy. Find something that is fun to you. Okay. So then moving on to this is affirm. So affirm is all about your emotional state, affirming love for yourself, really looking at what are you thinking about and how is your perception of what's happening in your life influencing your state of mind, your state of stress level, and actually really focusing on how to shift that. It's one thing to say, oh, stop stressing, but if you don't understand the triggers of that stress and your thought patterns behind it, well, you're not going to be able to lower that on a long-term basis. And then we look at cleanse. And this can be a substantial key component within the healing process. If you are having a lot of history of infection, if you have gut issues going on, if there's parasites in your body, you are basically, those things are absorbing all the nutrients that you're putting into the body. And we need to get that balance back. And so doing cleanse protocols where you can get rid of those things is key component. We look at all aspects of this and all the cleansing organs in the body and really supporting those. Okay. And then finally, help and support. You really do need to have a community around you that really can support you and provide for you, and people who get it, because this is not an easy journey. And you need to surround yourself with others who have succeeded, people who are in the same boat as you, people who want to do this naturally, who are not, kind of being around people who question you all the time makes you question it. And so having that community is really a key component. So basically, I've described the reach technique to you. If you want to know more about that, there are some other videos on my channel all about that. So go and check those out. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. If you like this video, please press the thumbs up so that other people can find it. And if you want other videos, please simply write in the comments what you'd like the videos to be about, any particular topics. The more detail you give me, the better, so that I know exactly what you hope to gain from the video. And then I can make that for you. All right, so nice to see you guys and see you very soon. Okay, bye.